Hi, everyone. It's Kristen and Nasia from Les Maisons Partners, and we are super excited today because we're doing something not all together in our wheelhouse, but something that we know that have just been hearing conversations about this recently. There has been a lot of talk about what's going on with upcoming elections, changes with procedures, and people have been even asking us just in general conversations, have you heard anything? Where can I get more information? So you know how we are. We go straight to the source. We make sure that we bring on our expert.
Absolutely. And I reached out to Nichola Hines, who's the president of the League of Women Voters of Atlanta-Fulton County. I know, like, over the years with the different organizations I'm a part of, whenever it's time for elections, we always do an informational session with the League of Women Voters. And so I just immediately knew that you guys were a great resource, and we know that our viewers would love the information from a reliable, nonpartisan source.
Exactly. and that was the biggest thing, I think, because we really wanted to make sure that we did something nonpartisan, so people just know the facts, what they need to know, how they need to make sure that they are able to secure their vote. And that is the most important thing. So I definitely want to kick off by actually having you introduce yourself and then telling us a little bit more about the mission and the goals of the League of Women Voters.
Yes, thank you, ladies. So as you stated, my name is Nichola Hines. I am the current president for the League of Women Voters, Atlanta-Fulton County. I'm also a board of directors for the League of Women Voters for the state of Georgia. So I wear a double hat here in Georgia. So I deal with the state league and obviously locally for Atlanta, city of Atlanta and Fulton County. Overall, the League of Women Voters, as you stated, is a nonpartisan political organization that is about empowering, educating, and engaging our citizens and our residents about elections, voting, and everything around it in terms of legislations, and just making sure that our constituents and our members, everybody, go to the polls as an educated voter, because that's how you become an active citizen.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yes. I think we really wanted to start off and talk a little bit about, we've heard a lot, especially in Georgia, but we know that there's a couple of key states where the legislatures have updated or passed legislation that we know is impacting the way that we're going to vote in our next elections and our next set of elections. And I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit more about that at the state level or even at the local Atlanta level as well. What do we need to know? How are our absentee voting or our voting by mail, about polling places? What do people need to know that have been part of that key legislation that's going to change?
Well, there's a lot of steps. Actually, currently, I'm encouraging everyone to check the Secretary of State's website to make sure they're active voters, because they're in the middle of purging voters currently, which is huge. And it could be the slightest thing that your address is not matching up. So they'll claim that you've been inactive. And that happened to my mom back in 2017-16 when Stacey Abrams was running for governor with Kemp. She got a notice that she was an inactive voter, and she actually was voting, just her address was wrong. So they're just taking anything to say that you're an inactive voter, which, technically you're supposed to be still able to vote, but it could be difficult. So that's the first thing everyone needs to do, is make sure you're active, make sure that your address is on the site correct. It could be the missing of a apartment number or, a condo that maybe has ABC. You might just have a general number there and the A is missing. That's the first key thing. Second thing, as you were talking about in terms of mailing ballots, and that's been a huge controversy, because if you request a mail-in ballot online, they're only asking for the state ID or state driver's license, which in the state of Georgia is $32. So if you can't afford $32 and don't have a driver's license or a state ID, you have to now go basically old-fashioned, print out the application, photocopy any of the other 6 identifiable approved identity pieces of paper. So that is a military ID. That's if you work for any type of government, federal, state, or city government ID. That is, once again, driver's license or state ID, a passport. So all those things, tribal identification ID, you would have to photocopy that, put that in the mail with your application. So that was where a lot of controversy, and a lot of people are mistaken. It's not necessarily about voter ID to vote. That has never changed. That's never been part of the debate because to vote in person has always been the same. It is how they changed in mail-in ballots. And once again, there are 200 and a little bit, I think it's 240,000 Georgian residents who do not have a Georgia state ID or Georgia.
Wow, I did not know the number was like
that is a huge number.
Those are registered voters. That's 240 registered voters who do not have those two forms of ID.
Wow.
So, for example, one of the things I always tell people is you could be a military person and, you know, have your military ID, and that's what you use to vote. But now if you wanted a mail-in ballot, you can't do it online. You would have to now photocopy your military ID, send it in the mail. And we all know, like, you know, how the mail's been the last couple of years. One, is not guaranteed that it's going to get there. Two, someone could randomly open it, right? Especially if they see the Board of Elections and they know that these are the absentee ballots and this is what people are doing. I don't know about you, but I don't feel comfortable putting anything that has any significant information about me in the mail, photocopy. You know, some people don't realize, like, yeah, I can have a passport and maybe not have, sorry for the backness, not have actually, you know, not have actual, you know, a driver's license. Maybe I just don't love to drive, but I love to travel. So now I'm copying my passport and putting it in the mail.
No.
That's your only form of ID at that point. Yeah.
Right.
So is there any way, I guess, to do this in person? And are there any impediments? I'm thinking especially for folks, obviously, who don't drive or relying on others for transportation, or they may, in fact, have some immunocompromised state where they may be a little bit apprehensive about going in front of a lot of people during a pandemic.
And unfortunately, no, there's no way around it unless you physically do take it to your Board of Elections and drop it off. If you're still, like, if you're hesitant to be out and you don't want to have that one-on-one contact, you're going to have to rely on the mail for it to get there.
Okay.
Wow.
So that's a huge thing. And like I said, I always stress it's not about the actual voter ID. That's never changed. The requirement to vote in terms of ID has never changed. It's the fact that they're asking 240 voters in this state to either pay $32 and get an ID or risk taking, you know, identity theft and relying on it to go through the mail.
Wow.
Okay. Well.
Okay, let's switch up a little bit.
Yeah,
so we have some elections coming up. I'm thinking just the city of Atlanta. We have, you know, mayoral elections coming up. Is there anything that we should be aware of in terms of anything that's going to be on the ballot? Any, I guess, like initiatives or any special races that we should be aware of in the upcoming elections, primaries and?
So, yeah, currently I have not seen any provisions or anything on the ballot currently, but this is a very, very interesting time in the city of Atlanta. There are only three positions that are not being contested, meaning they don't have an opponent. And that is District 2, District 6, and Post 2 at large. Those are the only three out of, 15, out of the 17 positions that are up for election. Wow. Everybody is, it basically, come 2022, we can have a whole entire new city government. Meaning, obviously, we know we're going to have a new mayor because the mayor's not running for re-election, but we'll have a new president, council president, because she's running for mayor. So those two tops, we already know we're going to have new. But the 15 council member positions, 12 of them could have all new faces.
Wow.
And that's why it's so important that people know about this and how they can exercise their right to vote, because you could actually change the complexion of your city government.
Right. You can change everything, ideology, thought process, and it's really important. So I encourage everybody to, one, find out first who is your district council member.
Right. Where do they go to get that information?
So if you go to the City of Atlanta's website, which is atlanta.ga.gov, you can go find them, and they will list everywhere, and they all have maps, so you can kind of also figure out which map where your city lies. And a lot of them are kind of on the cusp, like where I currently live. I'm on the cusp of 3 different districts. I mean, I know who my council member is, but I'm on the cusp of 3 different districts. I'm like, I should, right? Like,
you don't know where.
I don't think he realizes that I'm his constituent, but that's a whole other conversation. That's a sidebar conversation of him not knowing I'm his constituent. I'm like, yeah, I'm your constituent. But you know, I do sit on the cusp, and the way some of these lines are drawn, they are very different in terms of income levels and social economics. For example, District 3 covers the city, covers Atlantic Station plus Home Park and that area, and but then goes all the way down to Vine City and English Avenue. Those are polar opposites when it comes to social economic needs.
Right.
And you have to look at that. And I don't think a lot of people who live in the city of Atlanta and don't really follow the politics don't understand that when you do vote for these folks, that they have constituents that look all different. And it's all about who's going to be the more fair one, who's going to worry about all their constituents, not just a pocket here or there. And that's kind of like my running joke with my current council member, because like I said, once again, I don't think he thinks I'm one of his constituents, because he focuses on one area only. So,
I do have a question. Along, you brought up something. Has there been any redistricting since the last election that we should be aware of?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because actually, no, the lines have not been drawn yet. Actually, today is the 12th. This Census Bureau is actually releasing the full data report today to the states. So there's been a lot of conversation about redistricting, not so much that's affecting the city of Atlanta, but it seems to be some that might be from a state perspective. Fulton County, District 6 and District 7 have had a lot of talk about changing those districts and what those lines are drawn. One of the conversations about redistricting and reapportionment is that our state legislators have not been transparent in the process. And that's really, really important, because they should be taking input from their residents and not the other way around, right? Shouldn't be like, oh, this is what you get, because redistricting also and reapportionment also affects your other things, your school districts.
Right.
As you say, it'll trickle down. Your counties will change lines. Your city can change lines based off of this data. Your fire department, so if you are used to having a fire department that's always been around the corner from you, they can change the district lines, and then all of a sudden that fire department's not, doesn't cover your area, or that school district's no longer yours. And it's been, and it's supposed to be a nonpartisan activity. And we do know that there have been, options of over every 10 years, it's never been a nonpartisan issue. And that's currently what's the conversation now, because Georgia is a Republican ran, even though, this past election, they talk about we turned it blue, but the state legislation is Republican ran. And their battle is, well, the Democrats did it 10 years ago, change district lines. So we will never get out of this phase if we do not think about our residents. If they don't think about the needs and the, what they truly need when they draw these lines, and not go based off of political lines. So my understanding is they will have a special session. It might move up originally because the data wasn't supposed to come out until September. Now that it's coming out in August, the special session might hit September, early October. The rumor was that special session will happen in November prior to this. So we'll see when they go into special session. And I will say this, it is key to listen to that special session, because once they go back into session, even though the main thing is about redistricting and approving the new maps, they can also throw in other legislative bills that did not finish before the last session. So So we can reintroduce a bill that, you know, had made it, but maybe didn't finish the full process because they went out of session. So, you know, so that's really key that people pay attention to the next special session to make sure nothing else comes up and that they're only focusing on redistricting.
So let me ask you a question. A lot of us are busy. We're now getting back into the swing of schedules, and some people are now physically going back to work. So time is really short. Our attention spans are very short as well. What are the key things that I need to know if, say, I've moved in the last 6 months, or if there's any change in like my health and I can't vote in person? What should I be looking at? Because I just want to make sure that people understand what kind of like deadlines and timelines are involved, because I know sometimes people don't pay attention until it gets right down to a crucial election in the last maybe week or two, and then, you know, they're full on engaged. But should we be kind of concerned about deadlines?
Yes. So first, like I said before, I said earlier, was going to the Secretary of State's page and going into your voter profile. That is the key thing automatically. So if you've moved, you need to update your address. Even if you're in the same district and the same polling location, update your address. Right. So that's the first key thing, is to update your address. You know, early voting will kind of happen, but you know, that's early voting. They did cut down the amount of weeks that you can go and request an absentee ballot versus, you know, showing up in person. So the window has shut down, and I'm like, I'm trying to make sure I give you the right numbers before I say no, like the right time frame. So give me 1 second on that, because I do have.
Yeah, because I think a lot of our questions have been, when we were discussing with friends, they'll always say, oh gosh, we had so much time last time. I wonder if that has changed.
And the timing has changed. And like I said, I want to make sure I give you the right times. And we just did and also when we were talking about looking at our webpage, lwvaf.org, we do have a cheat sheet for SB 202 that breaks down each session. So each section of it. So that's why I want to make sure I'm actually looking at our cheat sheet so I can remember and make sure I give you the right dates of qualifications. That's the.
And to our audience members, you'll see this scrolling on the bottom of your screen. So that is always handy. Please take that down. We really want you to be able to get all the information kind of at your fingertips.
Absolutely. And I found that. So it's the period to apply for a mail-in ballot currently is 180 days before an election day and ends 4 days before. The new law now reduces the application period so that it begins 78 days. So they've almost cut it in half before, but it ends 11 days before. So it used to be you have up to 4 days before the election to request the ballot, you know, to have your to mail in your absentee ballot. It would still count. And you had up to 180 days before you actually did your absentee ballot, mail it in. Now it is, you only have 78 days is the earliest you can drop off your absentee ballot. And then it cuts off 11 days before the election date. So there's a huge, significant difference in terms of your time frame. As you say, like a lot of people's like, I seem like I had a whole bunch. Yeah, 180 days is that's like 6 months, right? So now they're saying, no, you don't have 6 months to cast your vote. Now you have basically, you know, like almost two and a half months. So now that we are, you know, our election's November, you got basically September, probably the end of this month, beginning of September is be your earliest you can do your mail-in ballot and your absentee ballot. And then it's cutting off 11 days, which is almost 2 weeks. That's like, you know, two working weeks, you know, 2 weeks before the election date. So technically you don't even have 78 days anymore because if you do it in September, it's going to be cut off like mid-October.
Question about that. You said when you say it's cut off 11 days before, do they have to receive the ballot in hand 11 days before, or you mail in it 11 days before?
It has to be basically it has to be stamped that day, the 11th day before the election. And, you know, in a hindsight, even though it's shorter, it does give, you know, time for the mail to get there and make sure that it got counted on time. You know, I always tell people, don't wait until the last minute for your mail-in ballot. Don't wait until that 4th day to do your mail-in ballot, your absentee ballot, because they only give you a certain amount of time to kind of wait for all absentee ballots to be counted. And if it gets lost, then your vote didn't count.
Wow.
Yeah. So now, you know, so there's a little hindsight on it, like saying, okay, you cut it off 11 days before, it should definitely reach to the Board of Elections in time for it to be counted. But however, the early part of it is cut so significantly that your window is almost like only 60 days, you know, give or take a couple of days now from 180 days. Yeah. 470 count.
What are people's options as far as ballot boxes? Now, I did hear that I was watching the news and I heard that they had reduced the amount of ballot boxes. I just wanted to confirm whether that was correct or not.
So we are reduced. Fulton County, I believe, is going from 38 ballot boxes down to 8. All the larger major counties in this state have significant drops. I believe like DeKalb is going, or Cobb County, I believe, is going from like 31, 32 to down to 6. And, you know, DeKalb's also going down. So they're only allowing 1 drop box per 100,000 voters, regardless of how big the county is, how spread the county is. So that's why we're going down to 8, because we have a little bit over 800 registered voters. Obviously, if we get more registered voters in the city county, in Fulton County, we will get more ballot boxes. So that's a huge issue, right? Because we know how large this county is. And so you have 800 plus registered voters in this county. We're the largest county. It spreads all the way up to Alpharetta, all the way down to, you know, like South Fulton area and everything across, right? And so now we're only going to have 8 boxes. And then on top of it, the ballot boxes used to be, you know, in places where you could just go and drop off your ballot box. It was a secure ballot box to do it in. Now these ballot boxes must be placed in locations that early voting is happening. And so at that point, it's like, yeah, it's got to be now in a building, only in the place that early voting is going on. And that's the only way you can put your ballot box.
I'm trying to do this so I can avoid going to the.
and I was just about to say that people do ballot boxes so they can avoid going inside. And so it shuts off the time. So if you're, you know, if the early voting is closing at 5 or 7 o'clock, you can't drop off your ballot at 6:30.
Right.
Because it's inside the building's done. So you can only do it during the hours that early voting's happening and inside of the building that early voting's going on.
Okay, so, and I'm glad you cleared that up.
This is so good to know.
I had heard, obviously, that they had expanded the hours of the ballot box, but that doesn't seem to be the case at all.
Yeah. So they're not expanding hours, but what it is they're using smaller cities and smaller counties, which will expand their options, but it also hurts them financially. No one's did any type of financial matrix of what these laws will affect smaller counties and smaller cities. So some cities, you know, because of how many registered voters, maybe they didn't have a ballot box in the last election, 2021. But now it's by law, they need to have one. So now you got to pay for a ballot box.
Wow.
That was not in your budget, you know, for 2021.
Right.
So now you got to find that money, which means that something else is going to get slashed to do this ballot box. So that's where so that's the twist of, oh, but we're expanding hours. We're giving, you know, more ballot boxes. You're giving more ballot boxes to cities and counties who maybe could not afford it. And expanding hours might be like, I think it's called Johns County. Like they have one voting location. It's a small little county. They have one small voting location. Ballot boxes help them because, you know, they were able to like say, hey, you know, I live in a rural area. I could drop off my ballot box. Now that ballot box that they have has to be in that one voting location. And you know, and the expansion of hours is not really extending it for larger counties.
Okay.
Like there's a provision that they can go 7 to 7, but I think they have to actually, you got to petition to the Board of Elections why you need 7 to 7. but it's 9 to 5.
Okay.
It's 9 to 5, and you're cutting off, like I said, major cities. So they're hurting the work. What I always say, this law hurts, right? It hurts the working poor. It hurts the poor. It hurts working mothers, maybe, you know, because, you know, if you are working and you're like, okay, I could do it at 7 because I'm dropping the kids off. Now you can't because, you know, it's 9 a.m. You're already at work. It's hurting city voters, like anyone in the major counties. It's hurting all of them. And so, you know, and like I said, fiscally, I think it's going to, you know, hurt some of these smaller counties. And I don't think they realize that fiscally, it's going to probably end up hurting these smaller counties also.
Wow.
Do you think that are there any plans, say for you, like from the Women of League, the League of Women Voters, to try and enact any kind of legislation or try to pass anything that would help make some, say, for instance, a holiday of a voter, the day that you're voting, National Voting Day?
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the question? I was like,
sure. No, like, this is the joy of tele.
Right. I just heard them talking, and I'm just like.
Are there any plans trying to get some sort of national holiday for voting, on voting day?
You know, I haven't heard. I mean, I know a lot of grassroots organizations are asking that, so that way that the, you know, like I said, the working poor and, you know, folks who work shift jobs can then have the day off and they can still get paid. I haven't heard that coming through any type of push from the federal government yet. And I think, you know, obviously the federal government has a lot of other things that they're trying to focus on. I mean, we just got the infrastructure bill passed, and they're still trying to work on gerrymandering, and you know, there's so many. The HR1 is what we need to focus on. I mean, national holiday is great, but HR1 will eliminate all of these state laws that are hindering and suppressing votes, because it'll be a federal law and it'll supersede the state laws. So that's what we're really, really focusing on, is that HR1 and making sure that our national legislators, our U.S. legislators, are pushing to get those passed. I'm muted. So yeah.
Okay, good. I was thinking.
What happens with, I guess, live.
Yes, I am. We were really sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Like I was on for a while, then I was like, let me just take my camera off. Just in case.
Kristen did have a question. I think she was doing a wrap-up question, kind of.
Okay. Yeah, now the lighting, everything's off, but we're gonna trudge through this. So I know you all have like trainings or workshops. Do you guys have anything upcoming that people may want to participate in?
So actually next Wednesday, August 18th, we are actually talking about the history of voting rights. So we have that going on so that you can understand the history overall of voting rights and where we are today. And, you know, has the needle moved? If it did, how much did it move, or did it move back or forwards? So we have a couple of great panelists that will be part of it. We actually have Council Member Matt Westmoreland. We also have Fulton County Commissioner Liz Hausman, and then we have a employee with Fulton County Board of Elections, Kobe Hager, to just talk about over the years of how voting in the state of Georgia, voting in the county, and voting in the city has changed and where we are today. So, you know, digging a little bit deeper into these voting laws. And so that's coming up on the 18th. Our next big major event that we also are doing, we're doing a hybrid event for the mayoral candidate forum. So currently there are 13 people running. Some of them everyone always talks about the 5 that are on top, but there are 13 people who are running for mayor, who are vying for the mayor spot. And we're partnering up with the Urban League of Greater Atlanta, Emory University, and ourselves. We're going to do it at Emory University. And it's going to be a hybrid event. So we're going to do it live along with having people come in. The hybrid will help us make sure that we reach enough people. And one thing, like what I love about the League of Women Voters, is that we do candidate forums. We don't do debates. We make sure that the candidate has to stand on their own 2 feet, not, slinging mud and talking about somebody else's campaign. It's about, why should we vote for you? And this is their opportunity to shine and talk about the things that they're doing or want to do. So we got those 2 right now that are coming up. And then we'll be doing some virtual candidate forums too within the month of September. As I stated before, only 3 positions are not being contested. So we're trying to figure it out. Virtual is the best way to make sure that we hit all these candidates, because we can do 2 in the same day, kind of back to back, and we can do multiple throughout the week. Whereas that's the plus about going virtual. Instead of us chasing all around the city trying to find places and then can't do a whole bunch of them. But yeah, so we'll be announcing that. All that information, we do have a calendar on our website, which is lwvaf.org. So we have a calendar. We always put those up on the calendar. So you can always see that. And we are on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So you can find us under League of Women Voters, Atlanta-Fulton County.
Okay, awesome. And I think, like, just to wrap up, if someone's interested in joining your organization, how do they go about doing that?
Yes, of course. I tell people I wouldn't be a good president if I didn't tell people to join. So one of the things I do say is, to be clear, we are not gender biased. Even though we had the word woman in our name because it started because of the suffrage movement, we have both male, females, non-conforming, non-binary members across the nation. So you can join us regardless of the word woman is in there. And once again, you want to go to lwvaf.org/join. And even if you don't remember to join, when you get there, you'll see the word join. It is currently $88. It's $85 plus the fees to use your credit card on PayPal. And if you don't want to pay the fees, you can always mail a check. The information is on our website for our mailing address to become a member. And we have multiple tiers. So single members, $85. If you're a student, a college student, high school student, if you're 18 and older and you're still a student, it's $25 to join the League of Women Voters. So we're trying to really encourage that next generation voters to be involved. And if you are a household or / couple, it's $135 as a couple. So if you're in the same house, you actually save money if your membership is in the same household. So we try to make sure that it's accommodating for everybody. So awesome. Come on and join. I mean, we need it. We are not, like I said,
awesome. Well,
we are a nonprofit organization. So we rely on membership dues and donations. That's what we rely on, not membership dues and donations. So that's join and donate. Even if you're like, I don't know if I want to donate, please donate.
And that's why we always really try to encourage nonprofits to be part of our YouTube sessions, because we already know that we're going to the experts. We're usually going to the people who are the most nonpartisan, and they have every reason to be nonpartisan. And you guys are such great organizations. So we're definitely totally appreciative for you being here today. And honestly, the information that you gave, it really cleared up so many misconceptions, even that I have, and I thought I was pretty informed.
Right.
So that really, really helped me, because now I'm going to have to really check my calendar and make sure I'm adhering to these deadlines.
All right. So yeah, thank you so much, Nichola. We really appreciate you. And if anyone has any other topics or organizations you want us to talk to, just leave a comment below or send us an email. So thank you so much again. We really appreciate it. Any last words?
Besides join, no. All
righty.
No, I would just say make sure you go to our website. We have a great cheat sheet breaking down the SB 202, which is the Voter Integrity Act. So if you really want to dig into the different sections, it is a 96-page legislation piece. We broke it down into a couple pages for you. So it's a really quick read.
Yes. Yeah.
So go there for that information. And thank you again, ladies. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.